Hello and welcome back to Wine with Andy and to another If This Then That wine video. This is the series where I give you some crazy off the beaten track alternatives to wines that you know and love. Now in this video we're going to be looking at an alternative to Chardonnay, that old stalwart. So I've got here a bottle of Chardonnay to be my baseline comparison. This one is from South Australia. It's lightly oaked, so we're expecting lots of nice fruit and a little bit of toasty oak from it. And my off the beaten track alternative is from back on this side of the world. It's from Hungary, and it's from the Topher wine region of Hungary, and it's made from a grape called Furmint, which is actually famously used to make sweet Topher wine, but this one is not sweet, it's dry. So, with that out of the way, let's get on to tasting. I've got my two identical wine glasses here ready to go. I'm going to put my baseline wine, my comparator, my Chardonnay, in my left-hand glass. There we go. That's that one. And I'm going to put my Furmint in my right-hand glass. There we go. And let's get straight into tasting. But of course, the first step of tasting is not tasting, it's looking. So let's look. These are very similar in sort of in appearance to me. Let's pick them up and tilt them against a light coloured background. I've got a nice light coloured table here, so I'm going to use that. Now the Chardonnay, this one, looks a little bit sort of greener to me. Just a touch of green tint to it, but it's sort of a light strawy colour generally. This one has same sort of light strawy colour, but maybe without that that slight green tint to it. So very similar in colour, but a little bit different. If you've got them side by side, you can see that there is a difference, but I don't think you'd notice it if you just had one of them or the other in front of you. Now let's get a sort of a sense of what we're aiming for, what we're aiming to replace here. This Chardonnay. So first nose, just giving it a sniff, picking it up and giving it a sniff without swirling it. I've got a lot of sort of melon fruit, like ripe apple, a little bit of something, a little bit butterscotchy, and maybe some sort of slightly spicy notes. So it's kind of the typical oaked Chardonnay, lightly oaked Chardonnay. The oak's not sort of jumping out of that and whacking you around the face with a plank, but it is there. It's noticeable. It's actually quite nicely done on this one. I'm going to give this as well. Oh, I've got more of that. I've got more sort of nice, creamy, maybe a little bit of peach, or sort of like cooked peach crumble. There we go. Bit of butteriness, bit of toastiness on the crumble topping, and a nice sort of peachy flavour underneath. So that's pretty much that summed up. Let's leave that aside for now and try our Furmint and see how that compares. Now it's a little bit more closed, so I've not got quite so much jumping out of the glass. Of course, Chardonnay, this one from South Australia, so it's a very hot climate. You'd expect a lot of ripeness and a lot of flavour jumping out of the glass right from the go from that climate. Hungary is still a warm climate, but there's a little bit less jumping out of the glass straight away. And we're possibly a little bit more on the sort of pear category of fruit rather than ripe apple, ripe pear rather than ripe apple. And maybe something a little bit of sort of aromatic citrus, orange peel in there as well. I'm not detecting any oak yet. Now I do know that this wine is lightly oaked, but I can't quite smell that yet. So I'm going to give it a swirl and see if I pick anything up after that. Yes, so there's a little bit more of that sort of ripe pear flavour. There's something a little bit nutty, maybe a sort of ground almond kind of a flavour coming in there, and maybe just a touch of spice on the end, but it's very, very light. It's a slightly lighter smelling wine, this one, but it's got the similar sort of that kind of, I mean, this is ripe apple, this is ripe pear. You've got a bit more of that slightly more tropical fruit in the Chardonnay, less of that here. It's sort of a little bit more on that sort of aromatic orange peel, but it's in the same spectrum. It's not a million miles away, and you've got a quite sort of light spiciness from a little tiny bit of oak on this one, whereas a slightly more obvious, but still well integrated oak on that Australian Chardonnay. Let's give these an actual taste. So, Chardonnay. So we're sucking the air through, making those silly faces and those silly noises to get really all of the flavour out of the wine and really enjoy all of the flavour sensations. So I'm getting on the palate from this one a lot of the same sort of things in terms of flavours. I'm getting a nice level of acid. The dribble test for acid, of course, is where you put the wine in your mouth, you swirl it around a bit, swallow it, and then see how much you salivate. And that, you'll be pleased to know, it has a high level of acid, shall we say. It's got a decent level of acid in there, which really carries that kind of tropical fruit, that richness very well, and makes it nicely balanced. So that's working very well in that one. Nice balance, nice level of acid. The alcohol, I know that this is a reasonably alcoholic wine. It's 13.5%, but that's sort of balanced out very nicely with the fruit and that acid. I'm going to try the Furmint now and see how that compares in the mouth. So this one, I'm getting a similar weight of flavour. It's nicely poised, nicely balanced. Again, very good acid, maybe a touch more acid than the Chardonnay, supporting that kind of nice ripe pear flavour, kind of aromatic citrus, something a little bit floral creeping in there as well. And I can feel on the finish, there's the creaminess and the slight touch of spice from that oak in that wine. So very similar flavour sensations. These wines I both picked up from the supermarket, from Waitrose in this case, but I've seen something similar in terms of the Furmint, at least in Sainsbury's. I'm sure there are in other supermarkets, so do keep an eye out. Probably only one bottle on the shelves, where there is going to be hundreds of, well, not hundreds obviously, but lots of Chardonnays on the shelves to wade through. But there's a reasonable chance you might see a Furmint out and about, and if you do, why not give it a try? Give it a try. So with that, I will leave you to continue pondering over Chardonnay versus Furmint, and maybe if you do like a bit of a comparative tasting, you'll try to find both and give them a taste off and see which you can prefer. I think, as it is, I prefer the Furmint. I think I'm going to stick these are both not refrigerated, they're not chilled, so that I can get most of the flavour out. The sort of chilling wine tends to dampen the flavour a little bit, so I've not chilled them, and I think the Chardonnay will do a bit better chilled. But for now, I'm going to sip away at my glass of Furmint, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers!